Good afternoon, everyone. We are live. Mr. King, we are ready to go.
All right, I'm ready to go too. At this time, I'm going to call to order remotely by me, and I can see I've got my board members there. I'm going to call to order the Pitt County Board of Equalization Review meeting for November 9th, 2020. At this time, as always, we are going to have a silent invocation, which I will lead you on, and then we're going to have a
Everyone,
pledge of
we
allegiance.
are live. Mr. King, we are ready to go.
All right, I'm ready to go too. I think there's a delay. Can y'all hear me live right now?
I can, yes.
Okay. And Andy, Ed, and John, can you guys hear me as well?
Yep, yes, sir.
Oh, and Jay, I see you too over there. All right, at this time, I'm going to start our meeting off with a silent invocation that I can lead you on. And after that, I'm going to ask Andy, who seems to be closest to the flag, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, since I'm remote. So at this time, we'll have a silent invocation. We all bow our heads. Amen. Now, Andy, if you could do us the honor of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. All right. At this time, it would be appropriate to have a roll call of the members of the board.
Chairman King,
Here via Zoom remote service.
Andy Piner,
Here.
Ed Covington,
Here.
John Shepherd,
Here.
Jay Shackelford,
Here.
Lauren White,
She just connected.
okay.
All right. From
Dan
my count,
Smith,
I'm sorry, I interrupted. How many members do we have?
we have, is Lauren White on? Okay. I've had 5 to answer to the roll, 4 present, and Lauren White is joining us by Zoom as well.
Okay, let the record reflect then that we have 4 members present in the auditorium and 2 members present via Zoom. All right, and I apologize. I want to go on record before we move on with our business. I apologize for not being there in person. I am under coronavirus protocol for being exposed to a known person. One person, my daughter was diagnosed with coronavirus on Thursday, so I don't have it, at least not so far, but that means I can't go out. I'm following the Pitt County Schools protocol, so I'm not exposing myself to anybody else. So I thank everyone for bearing with me. All right. With that said, now with our roll call, we're going to have to take votes a little differently today. So when we vote on something, we're going to have to do they'll have to call for the vote and poll each individual instead of just having a all in favor and say the ayes. So each vote we're going to have today, we're actually going to have to, the clerk will call out her name and we will say aye or nay on the motion. Same thing is that this is being live streamed on the YouTube channel, and it's being saved for posterity's sake, I believe as well, because we're in a remote hearing. So everyone just mind that I know that we always conduct our meetings, the whole world is watching, but theoretically the whole world actually could be watching today. So if we would just remember that what we say and do today is being seen out there in the internet sphere, and it's saved for posterity's sake. And one final notification on some of us being remote. Because of the COVID regulations, we're allowed to have remote meetings. However, on hearings, people are supposed to consent to having a remote hearing. So any of the affected taxpayers today, and I suppose the county as well, will have to consent to having a quasi-judicial hearing partially remote. So if anyone objects to that, they can certainly object to that, and we would consider that objection. But I think we're all far enough along in this post-COVID-19 world that we understand how to do things remotely a lot better than we did the last time we had to do it this way. But if there are any objections, I certainly would like those noted when we come time for those hearings. So that said, the first item we have is the approval of our agenda. Mr. Clerk, are there any additions or omissions from the agenda as published?
There is not.
All right. In that case, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
Motion to approve.
That's Ms. White, I believe. Excellent. And is there a second to that motion?
Ed Congleton seconds.
Ed Congleton seconds. And my screen is dark, but I think I can go anyway. All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as published? Oh, acknowledge after there's a roll call vote. So give us a roll call on that one.
Okay. Chairman King.
Approve. Aye.
Okay. Commissioner White.
Aye.
Mr. Piner.
Aye.
Mr. Congleton.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
And Mr. Shackelford. Aye.
All right, the ayes have the agenda approval at 6-0. The next thing on our agenda is approving the minutes from our last meeting, which was October 5th. I reviewed the minutes earlier, actually last Friday, and I found them to be in order. Did anyone note any omissions or additions to be added to those minutes?
If nobody noticed, I would like to make a motion to approve.
I will take that as a motion to approve. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Is that you, John?
That is John. Mr. Shepherd, second that motion.
All right. Whenever Ms. White talks, my screen goes dark for a minute, so it's hard for me to see it, but I've got everyone's voices down. Okay. The motion is to approve the minutes as published. Ready for a roll call vote.
Chairman King.
Approve. Aye.
Commissioner White.
Yes.
Mr. Piner.
Aye.
Mr. Congleton.
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
And Mr. Shackelford.
All right. Now to our next item of business. We have 4 real property appeals that are supposedly untimely filed real property appeals. At our October 5th meeting, we discussed what to do with these. And we discussed that we would, in keeping with fairness to the taxpayer, we would allow a preliminary hearing to determine whether the tax appeals were filed in a timely manner and complied with the statute. Jordan, are you there?
I am.
Jordan, is that's keeping with your recollection of what we decided to do on today? Is that correct?
That is correct. And a letter to that effect was sent out by the tax office to all parties who had filed appeals that the tax office believes were untimely, informing them that this hearing today would solely be on timeliness. And if there was any future hearing for valuation purposes, that would be set at a future date.
All right. And Jordan, I don't know if you have this in front of you. I've done a little bit of research today, but I believe that the statute says that a taxpayer may appeal a real property valuation appeal at any time until the Board of Equalization and Review has adjourned for that year. Is that, and I think that's under statute 105322G2. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, that does. That's the correct statute. And it says prior to its adjournment. So any appeal by any taxpayer would have to be filed prior to y'all's adjournment date, which I don't have that date handy. I'm sure Sam can tell me what date that was, but I believe it was in June.
It was in June. I remember that. I can't remember.
All right. I have seen in one of the materials sent that it was June 18th. Can we verify that?
June the 11th was that date.
June the 11th. And that I remember we had to extend our session longer by a meeting or two because of the coronavirus. So normally we would have adjourned in May under the statute, but we actually extended it out a little bit and we adjourned it June the 11th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So the first, and I'm just going to take these appeals as they come on the list. And the first appeal that I see is William and Tony Ann Malloy. Are the Malloys present in the courtroom or on Zoom?
I do not show them being present.
All right. Do you, in front of us, do we have the Malloy? I have in front of me, I'm going to look at it real quick. the Malloy appeal file that we've been submitted prior to this hearing, it appears to me that the Malloy real property valuation appeal, page 1 says it was mailed on 7/30/2020 and it was received by the tax office on 8/3/2020. Who fills in those dates?
Russ, was that,
That's their handwriting.
this is the,
I'm looking at,
Is Mr. Malloy's or who filled out the application. The
Okay.
receive date is actually my application or when that's my handwriting.
okay. The mail date would be the taxpayer and the receive date will be Russell Hill.
all right. So this one was, the taxpayer is in their handwriting, it said that they mailed it on July the 30th, 2020. And the tax office received it August the 3rd, 2020. All right. Once again, is anybody there? Is there any other additional information other than the document that has been submitted?
There is not.
All right. And there's nobody there from the Malloys that I could ask if they can send it to a quasi judicial hearing being on remote. So I don't know that there's anything necessarily to vote on in this one. Jordan, can you give me some guidance on this one? The only evidence we have here that was submitted with this appeal without the taxpayers being there is this form that says it was mailed on July the 30th. Can you give us guidance on how we should proceed?
I would recommend, they're not here to give their consent, but I believe the board can deny their appeal, essentially that it's been abandoned. They haven't done anything else to preserve their appeal rights. They haven't appeared or asked for any written type of continuance or extension. I think the board could act to deny their appeal. That will finalize, put an end to this for this year for these property owners. I think that'd be appropriate.
All right. Well, this time I would entertain a motion from the board as to the same, unless anyone has any discussion on the Malloy appeal. Does anyone from the board disagree with dismissing this appeal?
So, Mr. Chairman, according to what Jordan says, we would be in our perfect right to deny this appeal, correct?
Correct.
Okay, then I move that we deny the appeal.
Is there a second to that motion? From John. I saw John's hand. All right. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right. We're ready for a roll call. The motion is to deny the Malloy appeal as being untimely. And I'm sorry, to deny the Malloy appeal as being abandoned as they've not presented any additional evidence. Ready for a roll call vote.
Chairman King,
Approve the motion to deny to approve the motion to deny the appeal.
okay. Okay, Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mr. Piner,
Aye.
Mr. Congleton,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Shackelford.
All right, let me go to the next one. All right, the next appeal we have, and I'm going down vertically, is Shirley Reynolds LLC, parcel 11244. Is anyone there for Shirley Reynolds?
I do not show anybody in the auditorium or on Zoom.
All right, well, I am going to look at, same as I did with the Malloy appeal. I have been submitted in my materials, which I think are the same as your materials. I have got a certified mail letter and it appears to be stamped August 1st, 2020. Is that consistent with the original documents?
That is correct.
All right, so in this case, we don't have the same form that's stamped by the tax office, but we have a certified letter that's postmarked August 1st. All right. Does anyone from the board have anything they want to add to the Reynolds appeal?
I just want to clarify, so they just kind of abandoned the appeal like the previous people did, correct?
Well, they've not showed up to press their appeal, but the evidence they've submitted shows that they appealed after the deadline, which was June. This hearing is to determine whether the taxpayers appealed prior to the deadline or if they appealed after the deadline. And she's not here to give any more evidence, or the Reynolds, I guess both of them are not. So yes, it is to deem the appeal abandoned because they're not here. Yes.
And they they were sent documentation that the appeal was today, correct?
That is a good question.
Because that is something I just thought about, and I wish I would have asked before we took a vote on the last one. I do want to make sure that all parties were notified that their appeal was today, because I have spoken with the gentleman who was going to appeal his late, but he said it was because of COVID. He was an older gentleman, and he wasn't really sure if the tax office was open. I'm sorry, I was getting another call. Did I?
No, you're
Yeah.
fine. Your point is you want to make sure that for the Malloy appeal, the one we just voted on, and for the Reynolds appeal, that these people were given notice that their hearing date was today, correct?
Yes. Yes.
I would also like to make sure of that as well.
Chairman King,
Yes.
Russell Hill has confirmed that all these notices were mailed out October the 12th.
Okay, and they noticed it for November 9th hearing date.
That's correct.
All right, Ms. White, does that satisfy your due process concerns?
Yes, sir, it does.
All right, at this point, this is once again just on the Reynolds appeal. We're taking these one by one. I would entertain a motion to, same as we did for Malloy, to deem that this appeal has been abandoned and that the taxpayer did not meet the deadline.
So moved.
Was that you, Mr. Congleton?
Yes, sir.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shackelford? From Andy. It's very hard to tell who's seconding with masks on, but I do clap my hands to you guys for wearing your masks. I'm by myself here. So the motion has been seconded by Andy. This is to deem the Reynolds appeal abandoned and also that they did not meet the deadline. All right, is there any discussion on that? We'll take a roll call vote then.
Chairman King,
I deny the appeal. It's been abandoned.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mr. Piner,
Aye.
Mr. Congleton,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
and Mr. Shackelford.
All right, the next one I have on mine is, and I've got to, give me a second. Look at the agenda real quick. Is Greenville Mobile Estates. That's parcel number 30723. Is there anyone here for Greenville Mobile Estates?
I am showing
Yes.
two for Greenville Mobile Estates.
Jared White and Heath.
Doing this by Zoom.
All right, Mr. White, I can see that you are not physically present, and as I am not. Do you consent to have a hearing in front of the Board of Equalization via? This is a quasi judicial hearing, and you must, if you would like to proceed today, you must consent to having it via Zoom technology. Do you consent to that?
I do, and I'm also joined with my partner Heath Norman, who's on Zoom.
All right. All right.
Yeah, Heath Norman is here as well, and I consent as well, Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Jordan, is that consent adequate to meet the requirements?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe it is.
And do I also need to get the county to consent as well?
I think that'd be fine.
The county consents.
All right. All right. So we now have consent to hear the Greenville Mobile Estates. So in general, the taxpayer bears the burden of proof on this one. So guys, this is a fairly limited hearing. I think you've seen it from before, and we certainly want to make sure you guys feel like you have some due process, but the state of North Carolina grants us as the Board of Equalization Review limited powers. They are powers given to us under the statutes, and we have a statute 105-322 G2 that says we can listen to taxpayer appeals up to the point that the board recesses. So if there's an appeal that's made after we've recessed, we don't have the power to hear an appeal anymore. So the purpose of this hearing is to determine when the appeal was lodged with the county, not to determine valuations. If we were able to determine that the appeal was made in a timely manner before June the 12th, then we would be able to hear it. But the taxpayer-based evidence of showing that they appealed prior to the June the 12th deadline. So on those limited parameters, do you guys have, you guys are free to go ahead and present your case.
Chairman King, can we have a notary administer an oath to them?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. This is a, yes.
And Chairman King, can we go ahead and swear in all people giving testimony today during this?
That would be fine too, yes.
Okay.
The tax office people too.
So just raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
How about those by Zoom? Yeah, Jana, can you step up to the mic and do it to the two? I don't know if we'll have to do it individually or if you can do it in a group. The two gentlemen, Mr. Norman and Mr. White.
Okay, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, since we're on your appeal, the floor, you guys have been sworn. As I described, I don't want to think that it's an uphill battle, but the thing we're considering today is whether the appeal was timely filed. So go ahead and present your case.
Sure. Well, this is Heath Norman. I'm based here in Charlotte. I'm a real estate investor, and Jared White's my partner. First of all, thank you all for your time. Thank you for convening and allow us to convene over Zoom. Mr. King, I hope your daughter heals and you don't catch COVID. But yes, I mean, I can't sit here and say we filed a timely appeal. You can see the date stamp of our review appeal form of July 29th, as well as the envelope of July 30th. I will say that you can speak to Mr. Hill, and he can communicate that we're in pretty constant communication with him prior to filing that appeal, really questioning the process, the timing of the process, because we were not aware of this updated valuation prior to when we needed to file the appeal. We found it on I believe it's the Opus website, and we immediately got with Russell, and he can, or Mr. Hill, he can attest this. We had numerous calls, and as you can see, we filed the appeal as well as numerous emails, which are in the packet. And so, as soon as we had the opportunity to start responding, we did, and we did it pretty thoroughly. And I'd say that, I mean, just as in the due process, I mean, you had two people that didn't show today. They were mailed a notice. No one's sure they got the notice. I'd say the same vein for us. I mean, as soon as we found this online, we began to respond to it, and we've responded to it pretty vigorously since then. And so I understand it's an untimely, but I mean, we have been very kind of honest and forthright with Mr. Hill about when we found out about it, and then about trying to get the appeal done. And Jared, if there's anything you want to add.
No, and I do appreciate the time as well from the board. And, we have, since the time we acquired the property, we have been receiving certified letters from the city of Greenville, whether it's been correspondence from code enforcement or the city officials in terms of our progression in the park. The first county received correspondence, I believe I'm looking here, was the 2020 property tax notice, which I believe was what Heath referenced. So unfortunately, we have no certified letter. We did not receive it. And to Heath Norman's point of, we did get a letter that stated we had a hearing on November 9th at 4 p.m. and here we are. So yes, the mailbox is open for business. It does receive letters from a number of different states. Unfortunately, we did not get the original one. And we're sitting here under oath telling you that we did not receive it.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone from the board have anything for the taxpayer on that one? Let me ask you a question then. Have y'all owned this property? How long have you owned this property?
Mr. King, we closed in May of 2019.
Okay. All right. I just was making sure you didn't, usually they send them out. I was making sure you didn't buy it in 2020, which you may not have gotten at that point, but you should have gotten the revaluation notice to the registered address in January, February. But I understand what your testimony is. You did not receive that, and you didn't notice this until later on, correct?
Yes, I love Mr. Hill. I mean, if he is allowed to speak up, I mean, he's been great to work with and answered a lot of our questions, and thank him for all his time. But we've been in pretty constant communication with him throughout this process.
All right. Well, he is going to get a chance to talk on this one because he is the county resident. I believe he's sworn under oath to testify. So I'm going to let him testify as well.
Okay.
But does anyone else from the board have anything for these two gentlemen? All right. Don't go anywhere. I know you guys are on Zoom. Don't go anywhere. We usually make a decision fairly quickly. And of course, your hearing is not over. I will close it to evidence before it's over. But at this point, we'll hear from the county. Mr. Hill, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Good to see you, Mr. Hill. We've heard the testimony of the taxpayers who admitted that they did not send in a timely notice by the June 12th deadline. And they've said that they've had multiple correspondence with you over the time, and that they did not get the initial revaluation notice back when the ones were mailed out, I think around the 1st of February this year. Would you like to give us the county's position?
Yes, sir. So, like Mr. Norman said, I think it was the end of July. I think it was the first that I'm aware that we talked with them. I have an email dated for July 29th. And I think he requested a copy of the reappraisal or the reevaluation notice that was mailed out earlier that year in February. And also, I think a personal property tax bill that they had, and I sent those documents to him on that day. And like Mr. Norman said, we did have communication back and forth. And I did provide, I think in the board's packet and yours, Mr. King, I think it's the last page in there, a copy of the letter that was mailed out of our print vendor dated February 14th, showing that this property was included in the ones that we did mail out. Like I told Mr. Norman, that legally our hands were tied. Me and Mr. Kroom did do a field review, looked at the property, just tried to make sure there was nothing outstanding on it that we missed or was egregious on it. But as far as any valuation concerns, that the time had already expired on June the 11th once the board adjourned for taking new appeals.
Well, I think even at that point, once the Board of Equalization starts sitting and hearing appeals, you guys lose the authority to actually compromise the tax value yourself in your informal appeals. So it goes, you guys have the informal authority until whenever first Monday in April or whenever we generally meet. Then once we start, then it becomes to us and you guys send it up to us. And then once we adjourn, I think the remedy, if they don't like what we do, is to end up at the Property Tax Commission to see whether or not, well, the question isn't whether we want to help them out or listen to them. The question is whether we have the power to do it, I think. Does anyone from the board have anything for Mr. Hill? All right. And Mr. Norman and Mr. White, you've heard what Mr. Hill says, and I think he agrees that you guys have been very pleasant to work with. We're just kind of in a difficult situation. Do you guys have anything else you want to add in rebuttal?
No, I thank Mr. Hill for his time and his diligence in responding to our questions.
Well, the crazy thing is we got a pretty easy, our questions today is not hard, but I think I've seen your package. I think you guys have done some due diligence that would make for a difficult appeal if we actually had to hear the appeal. Go ahead, Ms. White.
I just wanted to just be sure I'm understanding everything correctly since I'm virtual today and not there in person. They did not get their notice, and when they did, they immediately made contact with the tax office, and I've been in constant contact with them to try to work the situation out, correct?
Yes, they notified the tax office sometime after their testimony is they did not receive the February notice of revaluation, which is attached on there. They did not receive it. They noticed the value on Opus at some kind of later time, not from a notification from the county. They just noticed it prior to the tax bills going out. And then they notified Mr. Hill, but at the time that they sent in, at the time of the first notification to Mr. Hill, the deadline for appealing to the board had already passed, which is June 12th. So, mean, the testimony from the taxpayer is we didn't get notice of the revaluation. And as soon as we found out, we jumped on it. We got with them. And we did it as fast as we could, but we never got notice. And I think Mr. Hill said they were very cooperative as well. And they've said Mr. Hill was very cooperative with them. So the question though is, what do we do about it, I guess? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone else from the board besides Ms. White have anything for the taxpayers?
We're talking about 2019,
No, we're talking about 2020.
2020. Okay.
Yes, they acquired the property in 2019.
The property was bought in 2019.
That's correct. So
But the appeal that we're talking about, or the timeliness of it, if you will, is for 2020.
that's correct.
Okay.
Because this was a reappraisal year, so they did the reappraisals and they sent out the reappraisals in February. The taxpayers has testified that they did not get the reappraisal notice, and that's why that they did not file a timely application to the board.
Is that in dispute?
It's not in dispute that they did not file a. It's not in dispute that they did not file a timely appeal with the board. It isn't, and it's not. The tax office has said, "Hey, we mailed these things out," and has presented the notice with the address to. Give me a second. My older eyes. 206 College Street, Unit 1084, Pineville, North Carolina 28134. That they sent that out in February, and the taxpayer did not respond to it to appeal in a timely manner. It's not in dispute whether they appealed in a timely manner. The taxpayer is saying, "I never got that notice," and the county is saying, "Well, you might not have gotten it, but we did send it out." So it is a kind of a mailbox.
What does the law say about that situation? I mean,
If I could add, not trying to prevent evidence, but the board, the county also notices revaluation via public advertisements. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary to the board?
That is correct. We do advertise. We advertise that the Board of Equalization Review will meet and the adjournment dates.
And isn't it also advertised that we have a revaluation going on? Is that part of a notice as well?
I'm going to have to, I'm not sure if we actually give notice. I would have to check on that and get back with you on that. But the only thing that we do is whenever we change a value is we're required to send it to the last mailing address. And that has been consistently upheld by the courts. That's the only thing that we have to do is once we change a value, we have to mail that notice. And then we do have to advertise that we do that for the Board of Equalization Review, the date that it meets or the first meeting and the day that it adjourns. Of course, we also too, we do give during like commissioner meetings and TV interviews and things like that, newspaper advertisements, newspaper articles that we do, press releases that we are doing a countywide reappraisal. I know that I conducted 2 interviews, one with Channel 7 and one with Channel 12 this year because they saw the presentation during the Board of Commissioners meeting.
The schedule of values is something that's publicly advertised.
That is
before
correct.
Being adopted by the Board of Commissioners.
Correct. And that was done last August and September of 2019.
Yeah, Jordan, that is, and you have 30 days to, a taxpayer has 30 days to object to the schedule of values once it's published, in my understanding. But as far as the revaluations go, the crazy thing is that any taxpayer can object to any tax value in the county so long as they own taxable property in the county, I believe. So
I don't believe it's a prerequisite a property owner receive individualized notice before preserving, triggering their appeal rights. The statute to appeal is based off your adjournment date.
I understand. I'm going to go ahead, unless someone else has something for the taxpayers, I'm going to close this one to evidence and we can discuss it.
Mr. Chairman, my one question would be, I know Mr. Norman lives in Charlotte, but Mr. White, are you in Greenville?
No, sir, I'm in Charlotte as well with, we do not have local
All right.
TV access or local newspaper access, so.
So
Guys,
do you have a local manager here that picks up the mail out of the mailbox?
We do not. That mailbox is in Pineville, North Carolina, is a suburb of Charlotte. It's just
Okay.
on the south side. So we do not receive any mail in Pitt County.
yes, Ed, it's Pineville, not Pine Tops.
Yes.
Go ahead. John, did you have a question?
In outside of Charlotte.
So what's the mailbox answer?
The mailbox goes to the address in Pineville outside of Charlotte.
Oh, okay, So
So
there's
it is
something
not a
like-
local address.
okay. All right, I got it.
Okay, does anyone else have anything for the taxpayer? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close this one to evidence. Guys, this is a real property, it's not a real property appeal. This is a hearing to determine whether to proceed with a real property appeal. It is a reappraisal year. The taxpayer in this case has been asked to present evidence that they timely filed their appeal, and they have admitted that they have not timely filed their appeal, but they have put up a defense in that they did not get notice of the actual reappraisal, which was mailed out in February with the reappraisal notices. And that as soon as they did find out of the revaluation, they didn't sit on it. They got busy and they filed their appeal as soon as they had, a meaningful chance to do so. So the question for us is, are we allowed to hear, knowing that they did not timely file it, are we allowed to grant them an appeal, or does the statute bar us from actually hearing the appeal at all? So that's the question. Does anyone have any ideas from the board?
I'm not sure if this is allowed by statute or not, but after hearing their argument and experiences that I've had with getting mail or not getting mail, I would like to make a motion that we do hear their appeal. They have showed up today and followed through. They've said that they didn't get the original notice, and I think they've given us sufficient evidence to support that. So that's my motion.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion. Ed Congleton.
All right, Ed. All right. Now it's time for discussion. You guys, Lauren, I think that you just made some discussion on your motion as to why you wish to grant it. Ed, do you wish to speak in favor of the motion?
Well, yes, I'm like Ms. White. I've also had problems with mail service at my address out in Ironwood, and I don't know what's been going on with the Postal Service, but even when I ran a business, we had problem with mail getting to a customer. We'd mail it to an address for 2 years at a time, and all of a sudden it did not go. So I would say, in my opinion, that's a legitimate excuse, but it's up to the board to decide at this point.
All right. Does anyone from the board wish to speak in opposition to the motion?
I don't want to speak in opposition. I agree with what's been said. My only question is, does it give us that authority, or is it, binding that the date was missed? I mean,
yes, that's what I'd like. I would like to speak on that too. I just wanted to give the board, guys, I believe these taxpayers, these guys seem like fine, upstanding men that are willing to invest in Pitt County, and I feel sorry for them. I also am having a terrible problem with the mail. I don't mail anything that is worth anything anymore. I UPS everything these days. I think we've seen with this, the lead up to the election, not talking about the election, but the lead up to the election, people complaining about the mail and all the problems. The post office has got a lot of problems these days. And so I could believe that they never got their mail. But at the same time, I don't think the statute gives us the authority. I mean, the statute doesn't say if they got notice or not. It says, did they file their appeal? And I just don't think that we have the authority given to us by the state of North Carolina to overrule the legislature, to overrule the Court of Appeals and say that, hey, we like these guys, we believe them, so we're going to hear their appeal when the statute says we can't. So I'm going to vote no against it, not because I'm not sympathetic to the taxpayer. I'm just going to vote because I don't think we have the power to do so. And I'm somebody that believes in following the law as it's written, even when it means voting against people that I kind of feel sorry for, because I think that's the way the rule of law goes. So that's my feeling, that 105-322 does not allow us to even hear this appeal. But if I get outvoted, I get outvoted. So that's my 2 cents worth. Does anyone else have anything they want to say, or I'll call for a vote? All right, let's have a vote. The motion is to grant this taxpayer, let me get it right real quick. Sorry about that, Mr. Norman, Mr. White. To grant the taxpayer Greenville Mobile Estates a hearing at the next hearing to determine that they're entitled to a hearing. That's the motion.
Jared, before we vote, can I ask, can the statute be read out loud or something? I mean, just so we're clear on whether we have that authority or not. I'm just not.
Yes.
Jordan,
Jordan, can you read out 105-322G or whatever part you feel relevant on that one? That's a fair question.
So I'm taking my mask off. I hope everybody can hear me. I'll put it back on so as I'm done. It's subsection 2 is duty to hear taxpayer appeals. Quote, on request, the Board of Equalization and Review shall hear any taxpayer who owns or controls property taxable in the county with respect to the listing or appraisal, the taxpayer's property, or the property of others. A request for a hearing under this subdivision, G2, shall be in writing to or by personal appearance before the board prior to its adjournment. And it goes on. I will say this statute that I just read out is different than many of the other statutes on exemptions and exclusions. Those statutes on exemptions and exclusions specifically say that the board can consider late applications for exemptions and for exclusions if good cause is shown. That same good cause language is not found anywhere in the statute on real property valuation appeals.
Ms. Shackelford, does that help you out a little bit?
Yes.
All right, and everyone else on the board, do you understand what he read? All right.
I understand that we don't have the authority to, overturn the statute. That's what I'm hearing, because they don't have the exceptions built in that they do in other parts of the.
I'm clearly, I'm not a voting member of the board. I'm just here to give you legal advice. I would say that's a fair reading of how I see the statute, that this is not a statute that y'all are a board that has certain powers to do equity, that is to right wrongs within the confines of the statutes. And one of those equitable powers for exclusions and exemptions says, hey, even with a late application for good cause, you can, exercise your discretion. In my opinion, this is not one of those avenues where the General Assembly is giving you discretion. I think it's a hard and fast rule about you need a written appeal or a personal appearance prior to your adjournment date.
Yes, and I would take an email that was prior to the adjournment date that said, hey, I want to appeal this. I would think that in modern parlance would work in there. I mean, some kind of written statement that they wanted to appeal before the date. I don't think it has to be a formally filed appeal necessarily, but I agree, and you guys know I'm a lawyer too. I agree with Jordan that I don't think we have the power. But that said, it's time for a vote, I think, unless anyone else has anything to add. All right, we're ready for a roll call vote. Once again, the motion is to grant the taxpayer an appeal at our to grant the taxpayer an appeal in spite of the untimely application for appeal. So if you vote yes, you're voting to give them the appeal. If you vote no, you deny their appeal. Okay, does everyone understand that? All right, give us a roll call vote.
Chairman King,
No.
Commissioner White,
Yes.
Mr. Piner,
No.
Mr. Congleton,
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd,
No.
Mr. Shackelford.
no.
All right, gentlemen, the noes have it 4-2 by my count. Jordan, I don't think we need a motion to deny the appeal. I mean, I think that motion does that. Would you concur?
I do.
Okay. Mr. Norman, Mr. White, guys, I hope you feel like you've gotten some due process today and that this board has strongly considered, debating this deadline. And I think we all feel bad for you guys and feel for the equities of it, but I think 4 of us have decided we just don't have the power to hear it. However, we may be wrong. And there is an avenue that you can appeal to the State Property Tax Commission. It's actually fairly easy, but I will definitely tell you, you have to file that appeal within 30 days of getting the notice on there. And the Property Tax Commission may, reverse us, may say, hey, it's a different year, new rules should come into play. But I'm definitely going to make sure you get that notification and make sure you get that in timely, because I think we all would be eager to hear your appeal if we could give it. It's just 4 of us feel like we don't have the authority to do so. So we thank you. I think it's saying this for the board. We thank you guys for participating today and hope you feel like even though it didn't go your way, we've at least thought hard about it. So we appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, let's move on to our 4th appeal on real property appeals. That is Daniel Overby. Is Mr. Overby there?
He is.
Is he there in person?
He is.
And he's already been sworn, correct?
That is correct.
All right. If you want to allow Mr. Overby, if you want to socially distance and let him come up to the podium, we'll hear from him on his appeal.
Hi, good evening. My name is Daniel Overby, and this is my wife, Michelle Overby. She is going to give y'all just a brief overview of who we are and what we do. We own 40 properties in Greenville. It's normally smaller, single family, under 4-unit properties, but we have lived here for 20 years. And we've lived at our current residence for 10 years, right over by ECU, and I'll let Michelle tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do.
Hi, it's very nice to be here. I'm excited to have Zoom so that we could continue to meet in light of COVID. Daniel and I got married after meeting at ECU and lived by ECU and what's a lot of the students refer to as the grid. We've experienced living in the grid in good ways and bad ways. And when we started acquiring properties, little did we know 15 years ago we'd be doing it full time. I did maintenance today, but we've seen a lot of great things and not so great things. So when we started becoming landlords, we decided to treat students so that they could feel like young adults, that they could be in a home that their parents would feel proud of when they came to visit them. And so a slogan that we have is make your friends jealous, make your parents proud, and make your life easy. So our process is not only to have a nice house in the neighborhood by ECU, but to also help students kind of on their process of becoming young adults and owning a house in the future. So thank you for allowing us to speak today and for participating.
So there's a reason why she gets to introduce us and tell you a little bit about our business. We are here to say that we have not received the letters for a reappraisal. And Mr. King brings up a great issue of is there permission, is it allowed to even grant that? And my appeal is that the fact that we have this meeting, the fact that we have this review is giving credence that you can have an appeal that is later. If we were not meeting today, then it would seem clear that no, you cannot see a review at a later date. But the fact that we are all here to talk about a review at a later date seems to lend some idea that it is possible. And so I would like to suggest that there is possibility. I have a few letters or things here. I don't know, Mr. King, is there like a way to show you this document or to share this document?
I have a package of 21 pages that was sent to me earlier. Is it an additional document?
I'm sorry, we didn't know that we could submit documents. We have some documents here. What would be the best way to share those with you?
Well,
okay.
You can definitely publish them to the board.
So here are 3, and we need 1 more.
And crazy enough, you could probably describe them enough that I can understand them. If I need to, yeah.
Sure. So, gentlemen, the list that you're seeing has got 3 different colors on it: yellow, orange, and red. Okay, and so what we have listed are 33 properties held by EC Leases and Birdhouse Properties. Those are both Greenville companies. And every property that's in yellow, we received the reappraisal letter in August. On August 5th, I had received 5 out of 40 letters. On August 25th, I had received 17 out of 40 letters. And by the end of August, I had received 18. So what you see in yellow are 18 properties that we received letters in August. On August, I started to talk to Mr. Hill, and those are email conversations that we had. And he said that he wasn't sure why we weren't getting them and wasn't sure why we were getting them so late, but he informed us that there would be some kind of process of what to do, but he referred me to Mr. Tugwell. So I kind of took it up with Mr. Tugwell. He asked me to send over some information, and I asked him to have an in-person meeting if we could get together. I know COVID has affected things, and it's made some of these processes more difficult with COVID, but he was unable to. And I did not get a response from him on the 1st. So in October, I compiled the information that he had requested so that we could just do it all virtually. And that is part of what you see here. There's some other information, but that is what we have. So what we have at present is in August, we received 18 letters out of 40. And then in October, we received another 15, but 11 of those were repeats. So we only received 5 more additional ones. So what that leaves us with is we are still missing 10. And so it could be mail. I know that I tried to send a payment out, and it was supposed to be there on the 20th. So I called my bank today, First Citizens, they sent it out. And they said it still hasn't passed Rocky Mount yet. And so that was the 20th of last month. So that was 40 days ago. Or I'm sorry, not 40 days ago, 18 days ago, roughly. And so, yeah, there may be some mail problems, and we can go through the timelines of what we received. I have shown them all here. The ones that are received, since you guys, I believe, probably understand Greenville, you can see the red writing on them. These are the 18 that we received in August. Well,
let me ask you a question real quick.
Sure, the ones that we received in October are these, but they have no red writing because these are the ones that were emailed to us later after we said we still haven't received these, but yet it's still incomplete. We still don't have all of them that we need. Yes, sir.
Did you receive it? These reappraisal notices, though, should have come out in February. You should have gotten these in February.
Yes, we did not receive them.
You didn't receive any on any of your real property. You have 40 parcels in Pitt County. You didn't receive any notices of reappraisals on any of 40 properties?
We have not received them.
I mean, not one. Okay.
We have not. No. Right now, we started receiving them actually when we were getting property tax bills. That we were getting them at the same time.
Okay. And is the address that's on this Birdhouse Properties at PO Box 4101? Is that the correct address?
Yes.
Okay. So you got so for all, once again, for every tax parcel that you own in Pitt County, when they did the reappraisal and they sent out notices countywide on each of the revaluations, you not even on the house you live in, you got 0.
The house I live in, I don't know if that one, I'm not questioning that one. I only have 33 out of because I'm only going with the rental.
Fair enough. I'm just trying to get the testimony in there, but
sure.
Okay. You could continue. I didn't mean to cut you short. I just the timeline. I wanted to make sure the timeline should have been in February. Is the crazy thing. So.
It should have been, yes.
Right.
And so that's where we are today. So I've had a chance to talk to Mr. Tugwell and then Ms. Bethune. Is that correct? Hi. I've also had a chance to speak with her. And so it is untimely in that regard. But I would my appeal to you is that we have not received them. I've been paying taxes on these properties for many years and I'm happy to do that. I would just like the opportunity to, and I believe that this meeting here and the board is convened to grant that permission. If it is not allowed, then I would say that this meeting is pointless and we are all spending our time in a way that could be used better elsewhere. But the fact that we're here is set up so that in case of a situation, we still can hear an appeal even at a later time. And that's why I believe that this meeting is allowed.
Okay, does anyone from the board have anything for the taxpayer?
Mr. Chairman, can you just get and they may have, can you just get them to consent on the record to this? Your
I'm sorry.
participation?
I'm sorry. Do you all? This is a quasi judicial hearing, and since it is partially being conducted remotely with Commissioner White and I being remote, do you all consent to having a hearing via remote technology?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
All right, and the county I think is consented already. All right, county members of the board, do y'all have any questions for the taxpayer before we hear from the county? All right, let's hear from the county then. Taxpayers, don't go anywhere. We'll pretty sure we'll make a decision today, so don't go anywhere. We may need to call you back up. All right, who's going to present for the county on this one?
It will be Mr. Hill, B. Russell Hill, Mr. Chairman King.
All right, Mr. Hill. These taxpayers say they have 36 parcels and they didn't get notices on any of them, 0, to a PO box that's in. Well, I'm sorry. I'm looking at these addresses. It looks like some of it went to West Rock Springs Road. I'm not sure it was that. Yeah, 1036 West Rock Spring Road. That's a physical address in Greenville. They say that in February they didn't get notice of any of these. Is that? I mean, I can see losing one in the mail, but not getting 36 to them seems kind of odd.
Yes, sir. I think the first communication that I had with Mr. Overby was August the 12th by email. He emailed the Pitt County Tax Reevaluation email address saying that he had just received notices. And he was I think the question he asked, well, why was he receiving them so late? My response to him was that I'm not sure. They were mailed in February, along with the other properties that we did the mass mailing for. I could, and I told myself, I'm not sure why you are receiving them so late. They were all mailed at the same time, which I think our mail vendor, the notice was dated for February 14th, and I think our mail vendor mailed them around the 18th or so of February. Through that process, Mr. Overby did state that he had 40 properties. He said he had just received a few of them. And I did tell him that, if he would give me a list of them, that we would at least try due diligence and at least look at them to make sure we don't have anything incorrectly listed. But Mr. Tugwell, who was the real property manager, because of that amount of properties, we didn't know who the appropriate appraisers would be or anything, so that we can at least get in touch with the appraisers on staff to at least look at the properties to make sure that it wasn't anything that we need to bring to the board's attention. I think the ones that Mr. Overby said he received were duplicates in October, were the ones that he may have requested or said that he may have been missing. And I think that's the ones that I have printed there. And we did email those back to him, showing that they were mailed out with a February date. Those do not mail from our office. They mail from our mail vendor out of Mount Airy. And so what the board has in front of them, and I think what you have, Chairman King, are I think it's 16 properties that we are aware of. And those are the notices for those 16, showing that they were mailed February 14th. And the first that we heard of it is in my email that I have printed, was in August.
All right, so the mail vendor, you guys hire a mail vendor, they mail out a batch to everybody that gets a notice. And it just so happens that this taxpayer has 36 parcels that they didn't get any notices on from the mail vendor, as their testimony goes. But the testimony is the mail vendor sent them out in February. Is that correct, to your knowledge?
Yes, sir. And what I did, I did pull they do provide us a CD, and that's how I printed the ones that the board have in front of them today. Those are not the original copy. Those are off that CD that show that they were included in that mailing. I cannot attest to what happens after it leaves once it leaves their offices, but they were included.
All right. Does anyone from the board have anything else for the county? Okay. Does anyone from the board have do the taxpayers have anything else they want to add in rebuttal?
Jeremy, I have a question.
Go ahead, John.
In this letter or group of letters here, are you showing proof that you mailed their reappraisal?
We are showing proof that they were in the batch.
They were in the what?
That they were in the 70,000 that we mailed out.
Okay.
And what I did, and even I think one of them is not in Mr. Overby's name. It's actually someone else's. He purchased it in March. Because I was not able to find it under his name. I actually had to go through and figure out why I couldn't find it. But it was actually under, I think, a Cohen or Coney's name. He purchased it, I think, March the 2nd. So I included a copy of the deed, I think, to show why it wasn't in his name.
All right. Does anyone else have anything for the taxpayers? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this one to evidence. Gentlemen, we have in front of us go ahead.
This is Daniel Overby again.
Sure.
I do believe that the city sends, what they're saying is they send out a batch, but they do not get proof that they are sent.
They're
just to verify with you. So they send to a third party to say, send these letters out, but they do not get confirmation that each one have been sent. They do not get tracking numbers that they have been sent for each one individually. I don't believe that's wrong. If I am wrong, you can correct me.
No,
but
you are correct. The vendor,
there is not an individual tracking for each letter to prove that it has been sent off.
There is not. They don't send them certified. That is correct. But they are also not required to. But it's troublesome that you would not get any. I mean, if you got 0, that is troublesome in my opinion. But the level of the county has to prove is that the vendor sends them out a batch processing saying these were in the batch that we sent out. But no, there's no certification or anything like that other than the vendor saying these were sent out. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one to evidence. Once again, guys, this is to determine whether to grant a hearing based on whether the taxpayer had appealed. The taxpayers admitted that they did not timely file an appeal. In this case, the taxpayer's justification is they didn't get any reappraisal notices, not any until August, when we'd already adjourned by June, and that they own 36 taxable parcels in Pitt County. All right. We just heard an appeal from a taxpayer similarly situated. The difference in this one is instead of not getting a notice of one, they haven't gotten a notice of all 36 of their parcels, which I think we all find a little troublesome. But I think that the analysis is the same. And I think that the taxpayers held to the standard of actually having to, if their reappraisal doesn't come in the mail, and I got to say, someone's got to find out what's going on with this mail, with this batch processing. But I think taxpayers have an affirmative duty in a reappraisal year to check for their valuations. I mean, I'm not saying I think that's fair. I just think that's what it is. So, I don't want to color anyone's vote on this one, but I think it's kind of covered by what we voted on the last one. Does anyone else want to take the lead on this?
I would concur with that. I think the principle is the same. It's not the numbers, the principle is the same.
And you guys share, I mean, I think we're all, if this is accurate, that this taxpayer owned 36 parcels and didn't get notice of any of his parcels in a revaluation year. I mean, I think we've got some questions to ask the batch processors out there. I think the tax office does, but I don't think it changes the statutory analysis. So, as much as I think this is terrible, I got young taxpayers out there paying their bills every year, and they're more affected than anybody because they own this, this many. But I mean, I don't think it's any different than the first one. So at this time, I would make a motion to not grant them a hearing because their appeal was not timely filed. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. Is there any discussion on that one? Ms. White, Lauren, are you still on the phone? I saw on my YouTube that she dropped off at 5 o'clock. Are you still there? Let the record reflect, we still have a quorum, but let the record reflect that Commissioner White, we dropped her at 5 o'clock. I don't know if she had to go somewhere else or we lost her call or technology, but we still have a quorum. Who seconded that motion? I made the motion.
John Jeppard.
John, okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? This motion is to deny the taxpayers' untimely appeal. All in favor? Roll call vote. I'm sorry. Roll call vote.
Commissioner King, just to be clear, Is this motion to grant a hearing or to not grant a hearing?
It's to not grant a hearing
Not,
because the appeal is untimely.
okay. Commissioner King,
Aye, vote yes.
Mr. Piner,
Aye.
Mr. Congleton,
Reluctantly, aye.
Mr. Shepherd. Aye. Mr. Shackelford. Chairman King, the ayes have it 5-0.
All right, well, this hearing is to this taxpayer's over, but you guys have got to see if somebody can figure out with this batch processing what's going on. And taxpayers, you guys have a right to appeal to the North Carolina Property Tax Commission. I know that probably doesn't sound like fun, but you guys have put together, you know, a fairly compelling argument. We just don't feel like we have the power to hear your appeal, even though we don't like, I think there's a sense from this board, we don't like this at all, but I don't think that we have the statutory power to do it. And we've got to uphold the law because we're only given limited powers. But the Property Tax Commission may be able to address this. And it's certainly in these trying times, you know, it may be one that you guys want to pursue, possibly with the earlier taxpayer who would have the same appeal that you do. And you have 30 days to appeal this decision from the time you get to the board. Once again, we're not trying to beat on you or anything. We just don't think that we have the power to actually hear your appeal. We don't have jurisdiction. But the Property Tax Commission may think otherwise, and you may be able to get some recourse there. That's all I can say. And I can also say I'm sure the tax office is going to check their batch processing system to figure this out. But we once again, even though the ruling did not go in your favor, we hope you feel you've gotten some level of due process today. I don't think any of us feel great about this appeal, but I mean, I think we're constrained by it. All right, let me pull up my agenda a second, guys. We're on to the next appeal, next item, which is something we probably can do something about today. Give me a second.
Jeremy,
Yes, sir.
I have a question for the board.
Yes.
On that mailing that goes out, or this one that was supposed to go out, was that done in one envelope or is it individual envelopes for each parcel?
They do combine them all into one envelope. They got the capability of pulling all these like addresses and like names and putting them in one envelope and sending them.
So if I can understand you through your mask, it was yes, there are individual or not?
Well, like I say, they can pull all these notices and put them in one big envelope so the taxpayer doesn't get all the envelopes.
Okay.
But the names have to match exactly and the address has to match exactly.
Okay, thank you.
John, if it helps.
You don't know that was the case. It's just that they have that capability.
That's their practice. I cannot swear or tell you that they do it. I just tell you that that's been their practice since I've been doing business with them.
Yeah, John, if it helps you at any, I represent a taxpayer and I'm listed in my law practice. I represent a taxpayer, so I'm listed as the property owner, even though I promise you it's not my fault that the taxpayer is not paying their taxes exactly on time. And I get a one envelope with 22 parcels in that envelope. But then I also own some things, some companies that I get separate ones on that. So I can't say it's 100% consistent, but if you have 20 of them, 20 properties, all listed in the same taxpayer ID number, same taxpayer name. Yeah, I generally get them all in one big envelope. That is true. So I guess we shouldn't say that the batch processor lost 36 envelopes. Maybe they lost one big envelope, but I think we all have some concerns about that one. Does that answer your question, John?
Yes.
All right, guys, let's move on to the next thing, something we do have some authority to deal with. That is untimely applications for elderly tax relief. Who's going to speak for the county on this one?
I can speak for the county.
Okay. I've got two applications. They're parcel number 72021 and parcel number 35196. These were untimely filed elderly applications. Had these taxpayers filed on time, would they have been granted the elderly exclusion?
That is correct.
All right. Does anyone from the board have a motion?
I make a motion we approve.
All right. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. let's take a roll call vote on that. It's a motion to approve these two parcels for untimely elderly tax relief.
Chairman King,
Approve, aye.
Mr. Piner,
Aye.
Mr. Congleton,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
and Mr. Shackleton.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I have in front of me 4 untimely filed applications for veterans exclusions. They are parcel number 28000, parcel number 67064, parcel number 65450, and parcel number 73263. Mr. Clerk, had these taxpayers applied in a timely fashion, would they have been granted the veterans exclusion?
That is correct.
All right, I would entertain a motion from the board.
I make a motion that we accept them.
Motion to approve untimely veterans exclusions. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Chairman King,
Aye.
Mr. Piner,
Aye.
Mr. Congleton,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Shackleton.
Aye.
All right, that's 5-0. All right, I believe that is the end of our votes for today. The next thing we have in front of us is any old business. What do we have for old business?
There is no old business.
All right, what do we have for new business?
Give me 1 second, Chairman King.
Sure.
Chairman King, I did just notice on the old business that we still have one appeal that we're still trying to work out. It was filed timely, but we're not ready to proceed today.
That is the one we discussed last meeting, that we may have a consent item in front of us at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But we're not, we will see them on, I think December 14th is our next meeting.
That's correct.
So we'll either see it on December 14th or we'll be ready for an appeal, correct?
That should be correct, yes.
All right, because I think that's our last meeting of the whole session, the December 14th one. So, all right. Is there any other new business or old business? Either one.
There is not.
All right, gentlemen.
Hang on 1 second.
Oh,
How about these nine? Okay. There is none.
all right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your patience with me being remote. I thank Commissioner White for appearing remotely as well. Members of the board, do you have anything else for this meeting? All right, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss it, and I will hopefully see you guys in person on December 14th.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.